It was the first scrimmage day of Flyers training camp. Cam York bulks up, and Matvei Michkov is already getting ragged on by veteran Erik Johnson. I'm Charlie O'Connor with PHLY Sports, and these are your Flyers post-practice notes. Let's start with the scrimmages. Now, the scrimmages are not nearly as high intensity as the bag skate, the rope skate from day one, but they're not easy. The Flyers still practice hard, do a lot of skatings, I would say abbreviated versions of the bag skate, and then you have scrimmages. They do 3. They split the group up into 3 individual groups. Each group at least has 1 scrimmage, and one of the 3 groups has 2. So that was the focus of today, a lot of competition, 20-minute periods with a little bit of an intermission, 2 periods, and really just playing and battling. Now, the first notable piece of news with regards to the scrimmages, this is the first time we get a look at line combinations. Now, the coaches will say the line combinations don't read too much into them, but they matter a bit. They matter because when it comes down to it, the Flyers have had all summer to decide who they want to see Michkov with first, who they want to see Sean Couturier with, where they want guys. So it is worth reading into them a bit. And we did see something looking somewhat like a first line, Tyson Foerster, Sean Couturier, Travis Konechny in the scrimmages. We also saw the first set of line mates for Matvei Michkov, and it was Owen Tippett on the left side, Morgan Frost at center, and then Michkov on the right. So we saw a heavy dose today of Morgan Frost and Matvei Michkov, and I'm not going to lie, they showed some early chemistry. Didn't score a ton. Frost had a goal that Michkov got a secondary assist on, but you saw the makings of potentially a connection. So now let's talk about standouts in the scrimmages. Watched all of them, took notes. I would say one of the surprise most impressive people in the scrimmage, Uli Lycksell. Now, he's 25 years old. He's gotten NHL time, has yet to prove himself as a full-time NHLer. He looked good in the scrimmages. He had 2 primary assists, one in a Morgan Frost goal, the one that Matvei Michkov had the secondary assist on. Lycksell showed out today, and John Tortorella had some nice things to say about him after practice. So Lycksell off to a good start. He's very much a bubble guy, probably on the outside looking in, and he's no longer waiver exempt, so they would risk losing him if they send him through waivers. That does add just a little bit of incentive for the Flyers to maybe give him a long look and maybe, just maybe, put him on the roster. Some other scrimmage standouts, Morgan Frost, as mentioned earlier, he looks strong, had a goal. Does look a little bit bulkier. He's never going to be a big guy, but he looks a bit stronger, which is certainly a positive. Then you have 2 guys coming back from injuries. Jamie Drysdale, you really saw the lateral mobility today. He looked quick, he looked mobile, and he definitely looks healthy. And then one, Rasmus Ristolainen. Now with Risto, the question was never skating. That was never the injury. The injury was a triceps injury. The question was, is he going to look like the old physical Risto, battling, being physical, throwing hits, fighting through contact? And I'll tell you, he very much looked like the old Risto. He didn't look even a little bit concerned about whether that triceps would hold up, so that's certainly a good sign as well. I mentioned about players bulking up, specifically Morgan Frost, another guy who looks significantly bulkier, significantly more filled out, Cam York. Now, York has never been thin. He's smallish, he's not a huge defenseman, but he's always been a guy who works out hard. It does seem like, though, this summer he took it to an entirely new level. We interviewed Cam after the scrimmages today, and you could tell he just looked bigger. He looked bulkier. He looked stronger. And then we talked to John Tortorella, and he revealed the numbers. He said that Cam York, at least for the start of camp, he's not sure if he's going to be able to hold it into the season, but at least for the start of camp, York is up to 205, which is a big jump over the 175 he was listed at to start last year's camp, and a jump over the 194 he was listed on this year's camp sheet. So Cam York really bulked up. And I think John Tortorella's hope is that maybe he can parlay that into a big year, just like Travis Sanheim did last year, where he bulked up, had the big summer, got up to 220, and then had arguably the best season of his career. Flyers are hoping for the same thing for Cam York, who said today he thinks he's just scratching the surface of what he's going to be in the NHL. And finally, we'll close it out with a little funny story we heard from Egor Zamula, Matvei Michkov's translator / best friend early in camp. Obviously, they're fellow Russians. I did a story on this at allphly.com. Check that out. But we talked to Zamula today, and Zamula told a little story about Michkov potentially getting accepted by the guys, getting some good-natured ribbing. Apparently, When Zamula walked into the locker room today, there was an English-Russian translation sheet of paper sitting out, big one, and it basically said both in English and Russian to Michkov, asking if he had already found himself a U.S. woman. Zamula joked about it. He basically said, guys, it's too early, let him focus on hockey. But he later found out it was the notorious prankster, veteran Erik Johnson, who had the paper all set up and ready to go. Zamula said he shook his hand, got a kick out of it. But the positive of this, in all seriousness, is Flyers players are enjoying having Michkov around. They're having some fun with him, and that does speak to him being accepted by the group. Definitely a good sign. I'm Charlie O'Connor with PHLY Sports. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
We all silly like the mayor.